In society, some people send their children to boarding school and private school. I know, because I've been there. And that doesn't make them a cheater or an oppressor. But when these same people or anyone else who benefits from the system plays stupid, the moment they do, they become a cheater and an oppressor. It's the same thing with my top martial artist challenge. All martial artists who are trying to convince you that they are better than me, or who would try to convince you, are not necessarily cheaters and oppressors until they try to get people to make it seem like I'm crazy or to downplay what is going on. The moment other martial artists don't concede my point, they don't concede the relevance of my point, and they pretend that I'm not being covertly drugged, or that the psych meds that they've given me on record did not impair me, or that I need psych meds after the countless proofs I've presented with psychiatric abuse, the videos, the interviews with people, interviews with the perps, the covert recordings. The moment they play stupid, the moment they benefit and pretend that what is true is not true, is the moment they become a cheater and an oppressor, and that is dishonorable. That is the moment they cease being a martial artist. Because martial arts are codified systems that all include an accompanying moral code and a code of honor. The moment you violate that code, you are not a martial artist. I'm no longer competing with you. So therefore, every martial artist who has ever tried to argue that my challenge means nothing, or that I'm crazy and I'm not being drugged, automatically, they're gone. They're not competition anymore. Not only am I better than them, they're no longer even martial artists, so I'm not, comparing myself to them. Thanks for coming out. And it's the same thing with women. The moment you females pretend that you're not shunning me, that you haven't been told not to date me if you're a gang stalker, or that the reason why you're not interested in me is because I don't come off as rich, you are now a cheater and an oppressor. You are cheating because you are trying to pass yourself off as a decent human being who is not a gold-digging whore. Unless you admit that you're a gold-digging whore, you're a cheater and you're an oppressor. You're an oppressor because you're denying me what I should rightfully have, which is attractive women my age, if you're one of them, or if you're convincing your friends. Instead of saying he's good looking, he's a great warrior, he's an honorable guy, he's everything that a woman could want, you instead say he's not rich enough for me. You are also feeding into the system. You are also a cheater and an oppressor. Now, I don't know about all of my viewers, but I cannot stand cheaters. I cannot stand oppressors. So even with this introduction, I'm sure it has become very apparent to the careful observer and astute listener that listening to the opposition view messes up one's mental adroitness. So in another clip, I show you the city manager of Stockton being gang stalked. I'm in between the two, and the mayor sticks up for him. Now this is Salinas. I've shown you this clip in other videos, and the Santa Cruz Police Department admit on TV, on Fox, that gang stalking exists.
Technology is making it more common.
Gang stalking itself, they have elevated themselves to technology. So this is something that's been going on before the age of Facebook, Twitter, those other social websites. They just now have gone into those areas.
Casinos.
Okay, so he said, they were gang stalking people in person, and then they started going into the social media sites. So when you watch the next clips, keep in mind that what I've been describing for years, that the San Jose community, especially Hispanics and whites, have been playing stupid about, and blacks know a little bit better about, perhaps because of it's part of general black culture to have a certain understanding of the psychological operations that broke down the Black Panthers, the GIP, the Ghetto Informant Program with over 7,000 informants. and the COINTELPRO program, and almost by default, they all understand that M culture is real. In San Jose, there is an appalling lack of understanding, and there is an appalling sentiment of conformity. As you can see, this is April 17th, 2014. This is me on psych meds. I've added that the drugged up later, because during the time I was so drugged up that I couldn't really tell how bad my martial arts were. That's another thing they do. They mess up your perception, how you perceive things, mess up your balance, your coordination, your focus, your dexterity, your agility, everything, you know. And this is just one of many examples. Like, granted, there's a few moves that weren't so bad, but almost every single move is 1,000 times more sloppy. Okay, and just for those of you who need to know, go to my Sid Jackson channel. You know what? Fine, I'll do it real quick. I mean, just compare that to this. It doesn't take a genius to figure out that I'm right.
No one will save those people. It's just like you. They are black African monkeys.
That right there is a glimpse of the top martial artist, you know, with long-term effects of drugs and some covert drugging going on recently.
All right, so I have 4 questions for you real fast. You know, how long have you known me, would you say?
14 years.
All right, do you think that I need psychiatric medication or psychiatric help?
No. We've been friends for 14 years.
Notice this is in March 17, 2014. I tell you what I'm on. I say, you know, I show you what I'm on. 1,500 milligrams of Depakote, and 50 milligrams of Cyprexit. I guess there's you know, a mistake there. And there's 243 views, 3 thumbs downs. All right, now listen to how I talk.
So, it's not a coincidence that I look healthier and there's more food available to me.
I look healthier as far as my skin, you know, but as far as like my appearance in the video, it looks nothing like me. You know, the camera distorts my features, and you know, to make matters worse, I look goofy kind of as it is from being on psych meds, being a kind of dumbed down, drugged up zombie, kind of not being on point.
And they've backed off of me, so I'm less irritated. Basically, my mood has to do with the background stressors, just like everyone else's. It's like when things go your way, you tend to be happier. When you see the things you like to see and hear the things you like to hear, you tend to be happier. When your senses constantly...
So I'm talking about how they've stopped gang stalking me as much, and it stops irritating me as much, and I'm fucking damn near brain dead. Functionality is at a bare minimum, you know. I can hardly function. And keep in mind, this clip and the last clip are 2014. This is a video where I focus super hard, okay? I put on a nice shirt and I go into the car. I don't usually put on a nice shirt, okay?
St. Helena's, they rolled with it. Valley Med rolled with it. Basically at St. Helena's, where I ended up being hospitalized for about 10 days, they said that it was a threat and that they didn't feel comfortable discharging me. And my parents did not want to provide third-party assistance for the hearing that I had there. So I was not allowed to leave against medical advice. And when I was discharged, they gave me a number I could call for a hearing, which obviously wouldn't go my way, just like the hearing that I attended there.
So I'm recounting the events while I was there, and it makes it clear that, you know, when they claim that I'm in some kind of out of touch state of mind, I remember everything that happened. You understand me? And the drugs are messing up my speech and making it hard for me to say things, but I'm managing to do it. And I make a video about how angry I am at the sheriffs. So on or off psychiatric meds that they prescribe, I see things the same way. Okay? You gotta remember, this is both these last clips I've shown you, this one, the last one. This is, you know, they're right after I get out of psych wards. Okay, and so Now, you know, it's 2014, so I've been to the psych ward twice in less than 6 months and given huge doses of drugs and expected to stay on them. So this is all during my top martial arts challenge. This is during the first, since this is July, it's like during the first 8 or 9 months of my top martial arts challenge. Okay, the last 2 videos I've shown you. And I'm still, you know, having my challenge out there, and you see the videos with my martial arts, you know, they've seriously suppressed my martial arts ability, and I'm still the champ. The video is a perfect example of how my freestyles were worse on psych meds. So my martial arts are worse, my freestyles are worse, and I'm pretty sure you can take my word for it that my performance in school was worse, and my ability to concentrate, focus, and function in pretty much everything was worse. So notice how I'm dressed before I even start playing this clip. Leather gloves with, I think these sunglasses on, with, you know, the C hat, and wearing a dress belt with jeans, okay? And my body is out of shape because of the drugging. This is within 4 days of that last drugging video I showed you, or I will show you in another clip. This is March 25th. I believe that video is March 17th, where I tell you what drugs I'm on, and you can hear it in my voice. Now, keep in mind, I was also drugged up when I started to get all those tattoos on me. So some of these tattoos don't look so great. You know, I was drugged up with psych meds when I got in my mind that I should get a bunch of tattoos, one for every time I've been in the psych ward. Now compare this flow. Just like with alcohol, when you think you're acting in a way that's smooth, any intoxicant can have that effect on you, where you think you're acting smooth, but you're really acting a fool. Now here's a more recent song. This is February 2nd, 2016. I've been off psych meds for, I want to say 2 years, somewhere between 1 year and 2 years, I believe. Let's just go to a random part of the song, random sample. I'll go.
So this one is my goal, to die in combat for the Lord, to get through heaven's gates. I had to wield heaven's sword. Oh, my uncle and my son, the pain, the sun, the war, the guns, the blaze, the flickering lights, a transcendent hero, his might.
Now, so you see, I'm very poetic, I'm very passionate, I'm very in touch with myself. You know, I'm a human being. You see what it means to be dehumanized in the other clip, to be some kind of drugged up, out of touch idiot, versus being yourself, expressing your emotions. So it's hindering, I've established it hinders my ability to be myself, to be in touch with my true emotions. It makes my freestyle worse, and you know, I can't even, you know, I wasn't even able to do the sound, you know, the beat was too loud. I sounded all fucked up. I mean, it was just off. The way I was dressed, everything just horrible, unorganized, just off, thrown way off. And this one, I'm on point and I'm poetic. You know, even, you know, the random part of the song I chose for you is the part where I'm struggling the most to think of what to say and make it rhyme. But it still does a good job. You just don't see that on the drugs. And it's, you know, I shouldn't have to show this to anybody. The fact that I have to show you shows you how far gone society is. Where, you know, and also shows you that I understand very well the effects of drugs. I used to smoke weed. I used to drink. You know, I've been on psych meds many times. When someone like me says they're covertly drugging him, it would take a complete moron not to 100% believe them. And so here we are, you know. After all the horrible, horrible things they've done to me. My family and friends pretty much betrayed me. And my erstwhile peers, where were they? Where were they when I reached out to them? Where was San Jose? Where was Morgan Hill? They were trying to play me out as crazy. Now I have definitively proven yet again that psych meds makes me behave like a fucking complete weirdo. And I behave in a manner that is extremely socially normative for a warrior when I am not on psych meds. The only thing that out of the ordinary one could argue is when I get angry. But when I'm angry for a very good reason, you try being sexually assaulted by these people. You try being covertly drugged by these people. You try being taken to the psych ward 10 times in your life. Behavior modification program in Idaho in Ascent. Okay? You try going to CEDU, which was shut down afterwards for its inhumane practices. You try going through everything I've been through without being angry. You want to know what the socially normative reaction to going through what I've been through? Look at people in prison. How do they act? Don't they act extremely aggressive? Don't they act angry? Are you going to argue that everyone in prison has a mental illness? Or is it the environment of being institutionalized by white and Jewish oppressors that leads one to lash out in a very angry manner, knowing they are being treated unfairly and are in an environment they don't want to be in at the same time? It's one thing to be ripped off when you buy a car and go home to your wife and have sex and a beer. It's another thing to be ripped off and treated unfairly and then go to a psych ward and have people pretend that you're crazy. Both scenarios will make one very angry. But 3 guesses which scenario would fucking enrage somebody past the point of no return, arguably. Thank you. All the black people in America who know about eugenics are absolutely disgusted that this was done to their people. To have it still being done while society plays stupid about it is enough to make a man kill somebody. Need I remind you of Harper's Ferry or Nat Turner? Need I remind you of the slave uprisings or the Mau Mau revolution in Kenya? It is socially normative to kill your oppressor when there is no other route to achieve justice. So for them to turn around and say my anger is a symptom of mental illness or even misplaced is insane. What they're doing is much more worse than raping somebody. And if a woman was to scream at her rapist after the police come, right, that I'm going to kill you, nobody would charge her with a terrorist threat because they would all understand that this woman was just done extremely wrong. And that wrong probably took place in less than an hour, for less than an hour. Now imagine 20 years of injustice, every day stigmatized by these white racist eugenicists who are inferior to you. They are not as smart as you are. They are not as noble as you are. They are not a great martial artist. You are. So you have to not only put up with their historical racism that they are doing covertly, that people are playing stupid about, but you have to also put up with their nonsensical argument to justify it. There's no way around that I have behaved in a manner that is more than noble. While the Santa Clara County Sheriff Department, Santa Clara County Mental Health Services, St. Helena, John Muir, Mills Peninsula, Fremont Hospital, and more have behaved in a way that is very childish immature, unfair, and reflects years of the refinement of eugenics in America. There are many quotes from Gandhi and Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and more that talk about how to be complicit with evil is one of the highest forms of evil. Not to act is as much of an act as to act, and so on and so forth. Apparently, these people aren't educated to know the significance of that, much less how to apply it in their everyday lives. Yet they think they are deserving of a position in society that mimics the powers of God. These inferior forms of life and their inferior arguments should all be discarded, should all be eliminated. These people went one step further than what JFK warned us about. Instead of guerrillas by night alone, they drug day and night. They covertly drug people. They use technology on people. They come straight out of the taxpayer's budget, making the taxpayer complicit. I tell you the truth. To turn a blind eye on evil activities is evil. And to pay for those activities with your tax money and then turn a blind eye on them, knowing damn well they are occurring, makes you not only evil, but an evil, complicit coward. You're paying for it. So why shouldn't you pay for it? So because a bunch of rich pharmaceutical scum, a bunch of conniving bankers, a bunch of fat pigs, a bunch of atheists in the intelligence community, a bunch of fake Christians, because all these cowards don't want me to make them look bad, because the UFC and martial artists don't want me to show them up, I'm supposed to be drugged instead. For the benefit of the most evil, deceitful people in society. That is their logic. They intend to bring in a new order, which is very top-heavy. It is an oligarchy. I could go on about what their philosophies are, but let's stick to what you cowards will believe easily and what you're going to be forced to admit is true. In this new order of corporate fascism, if you will, in oligarchy, anyone who is deemed a financial burden, who could possibly spread that financial burden to their friends, and when they reproduce, bring in someone else who's a financial burden, they want to eliminate. If you are disabled, and they have falsified studies that say that, you have a mental disorder and that you're going to spread it to your seed, which is absolute nonsense. I've completely destroyed biological psychiatry. In fact, I've completely destroyed psychiatry in general. They wish to get rid of you. If you are a political dissident, you are a financial burden. I'll give you a moment to think about that. How is a political dissident a financial burden? Okay, I'll spell it out for you. Whenever there is a protest, are there not police officers there? Some in marked vehicles, some in uniform, some not in uniform. Do they not have to hire some police officers and pay them overtime to make up for the other areas where they still have to serve the people, even though there's a protest. So they have to put more police officers on the clock. They have to pay people to monitor these people's social media sites. They have to pay for informants. They have to pay for surveillance operations. Political dissidents are a financial burden on the system. And the best way to correct that is to make an honest system. Therefore, nobody wants to protest but a handful of people who are batshit crazy. But when you have a system of complete corruption, a system of depravity and degradation, naturally, righteous men will want to protest. So they must go after righteous people and people who are already political dissidents, and they must try to sterilize them and kill them off. The poor are a financial burden on the system. Or do I need to describe to you how welfare works? So it's not only the disabled. It is people with substance abuse problems, people who suffer from licentiousness. It is pauperism. It is indolence. To put it simply, the poor, the people with substance abuse issues. All these people have been made this way by the system, by the way. You know, let's not talk about chemicals and stuff. And let's not talk about the food and environmental factors and chemical factors, okay? The major factors of their situation have to do with sociology and social policy and corporate greed. So the poor, the people with substance abuse problems, the disabled, mentally disabled, physically disabled, what have you. There's different categories of disabled people. The political dissidents, they are all a burden on society financially. And because it is the rich that determines the policy, they are not going to change their policy in a way that makes it so there's less poor people. In a very benevolent way, rather, instead of a covert and malevolent manner. They are not going to, stimulate the economy in a healthy manner. They are only going to consider their ulterior motives. They are not going to admit that psychiatry doesn't know what it's talking about because they're making money from pushing the lie. They are the investors in the big pharmaceutical companies. They are the staff. Their children, their friends and family work for them and get paid 6 figures plus. They are not going to do the logical and effective techniques to correct these problems of substance abuse because they sell the drugs. They sell the prescription drugs, the painkillers. They're in cahoots with the big cartels. They're the people doing gentrification and not paying people a living wage, taking advantage of illegal immigrants, taking advantage of people who have been miseducated by their horrible education system. They like the system how it is. So they are not going to do what it takes to correct it, but they will get rid of anybody who has failed to adapt because they are not part of a privileged network and they have not bootlicked to the point that they could rise out of their situation. They did not suck a Hollywood dick. They did not spread their legs for a rich person. All the people who have been left behind, most of which, because they are too honorable to sink down to a pitiful existence that entails and consists of selling their soul to the demonic system of Babylon. People because of their religious convictions. People because of their moral convictions. And then there are people who have been developmentally disabled by the things in the water, like in Flint, Michigan. There are people who are suffering because the CIA brought crack into the black communities, for instance. People who are suffering because America's domestic policy, and let's not even get into their appalling, abhorrent foreign policy. So what do? They say, well,
This is what we're going to do. We're going to put a bunch of pussies who say things aren't so bad. A bunch of pussies who say you sound like a conspiracy theorist. A bunch of pussies that go on about how the rich are so smart and they look up to him. Oh, Steve Jobs. Oh, John Rockefeller and David Rockefeller are so smart. Oh, I wish my daughter would marry him. Oh, they idolize the American Idols on TV. A bunch of cowards that make sure the system runs smoothly. The Masons, the pigs, the social controllers, all the sniveling dogs that make sure the system of evil, the system of shallowness and selfishness runs smoothly. So all the selfless are being screened out. All the victims of the drug trade, legal and illicit, are being screened out. All the victims of the chemicals in society and the lack of proper health care are being screened out. All the people who have acquired unfortunate habits that relate to substance abuse are being screened out. And all these are the direct effects of Babylon's system. The devil couldn't be more pleased. And these liars want you to believe that they're doing it in the name of the self-direction of humanity, of progress. They're progressives. And this is good for humanity. Yeah, it's good for humanity to screen out the most righteous, the most insightful, and the top martial artists all in the same fucking breath. The fuck you talking about? You inferior dogs? What the fuck are you talking about?
All conspiracy theorists are treated the same way that black people are. Your average black person. When you really think about it. Black people are disproportionately conspiracy theorists, and conspiracy theorists are disproportionately black. Some people believe that to claim that society is racist is a conspiracy theory. They would phrase it like this: that black people believe that there's a racist conspiracy to oppress them and keep them down. Most of these people who honestly believe that are very conformist. They're very shallow and very uninformed. They don't know what gentrification is. They don't know that most of black people vehemently stating that there's a conspiracy against them or that there's racists working against them have been effectively gentrified. Yes, there is a racist conspiracy in America. And I would go as far as to say that with every conspiracy there are attempts to cover it up. And one of these attempts includes allowing a certain amount of blacks to rise out of the ghetto and highlighting black achievement in sports, as well as making the president a half-black man. But these people were so racist that they couldn't help but make it a half-black man so that they could say, well, it's his white part of him that allowed him to be intelligent enough to be the president. So now let's look at this historically. Society historically is controlled by Freemasons, regardless how you slice it. Many of the rich, and I do mean rich, colonists were Freemasons, and they teamed up with other rich people and men of renown that they invited to their exclusive meeting when they signed the Declaration of Independence. I've talked about how Thomas Jefferson lived on a 5,000-acre property, owned slaves, and it was called Monticello. You see, Masons are historically criminals. They took an oath because what they were doing was illegal. they knew that they would be executed for blasphemy if they did what they were doing from the start publicly. So they formed a secret society. This goes back to the stonemasons and speculative masonry. And then the rise of masonry with the rise of Protestantism, when Masons really got a huge boost to their numbers. Because a bunch of Protestants who were being persecuted by the Catholic Church started becoming Freemasons, to the point where the church would make several decrees and several dictates that would say that Catholics should not be Masons, and that the two are not compatible. So Masonry from its onset attracted criminals and people who ran afoul of the law. And then they would later become the law, but they never stopped collaborating with criminals. So it's very interesting how these people managed to maintain a certain respect in the community, and that is part of, the requirements for someone to continue to be a member. And this is why they resent me pointing out that they are collaborating with criminals, that they're part of the criminal government, and they're historically racist, and so on and so forth. Masonry has always attempted to control all sides of things. In order for them to survive the Spanish Inquisition, they had to collaborate with other secret societies and place their members in high places in the Inquisition. That made it so there was maybe one case of a Mason being punished by the Inquisition during the whole entire Spanish Inquisition. Now, Masons are among many other secret societies, almost all of which sprung out of Masonry. So now, let me just wrap this up. I've definitively proven that conspiracy theorists are treated the same way as black people are. Isn't that sad? And when you think about it, when somebody runs afoul of the unofficial establishment, if you will, they are blacklisted. They are blackballed. And to silence them, they are blackmailed. And even the term blackmailed implies a black male and a black person being shipped. That black person was mailed. You understand me? He was brought here by the transatlantic slave ship. He was shipped in a ship. Blackmailed. Blackmail. Oh, that guy, that slave, he's just blackmail. So there's a lot of wordplay at play here, whether people want to admit it or not. And so I will now say to you something that many of you are going to have a lot of trouble understanding, and you're going to say that I'm playing the race card. When ultimately it is the white people who play the race card the most effectively. Granted, every once in a while there's a black person who claims that people are being racist against them when they're not, for whatever reason. But the vast majority of cases, black people are actually being discriminated against and persecuted for their race. So I'll tell you the truth. I tell you the truth. It is racist to hide behind mainstream white social norms and to put a stigma on conspiracy theory. Because when you do, by default, you are stigmatizing black people who claim there is an institutional conspiracy against them, known as institutional racism. When you do, you are stigmatizing all conspiracy theorists, and conspiracy theorists are disproportionately black. For the same reason, when you call somebody a crackhead, it is racist. There are racial elements to it, rather. Because crackheads are disproportionately black, because as anyone who's done their research knows, coke was the drugs were brought into the ghetto by the CIA, and that's where crack was made by chemists. Okay, chemists, people in Ivy League schools, secret societies, what have you. Sidney Gottlieb type, these kind of black ops, CIA ops chemists, covert ops, covert operation, psychological operation, covert drugging operation. To automatically assume that a black person who claims to be drugged by the CIA covertly is lying and is mentally ill is racist. Because black people historically, whether it was the Ionia State Hospital, whether it was Samuel Cartwright with drapetomania, historically psychiatry has been used as an institution of oppression disproportionately on black people to say that they're a crazy, uneducated, feeble-minded black person who needs to be sterilized and shut up instead of interfere with the white experts in charge. Most of you are not smart enough to put that all together. So now I'll make one more claim that many of you are going to have trouble swallowing. The reason why there is a great conspiracy, and it continues, the main reason, the major factor, because an idea can be struck down right away. But when that idea is not struck down, why is that? Therefore, that idea exists mostly because it has not been struck down or replaced by a better one. For whatever reason. Whether there isn't a better one or whether there is and that one isn't allowed to be put into action. The great conspiracy exists because of white social norms. Those same social norms that has countless white people saying, oh, let me guess, you think that they're racist against you, mocking black people for acknowledging that there is a racist conspiracy. Those same social norms they use on black people to try to pretend that no one's racist against them. It's the same social norms that allows for all these things to continue, including the KKK. Because part of the greater white social norms events, if you will, or the existence of the greater, category of white social norms is the existence of KKK people whose misconceptions have been fueled by the misconceptions that accompany the greater category of white social norms, especially in the West, especially in America. For the same reason the Ku Klux Klan did not go away, they're still mostly a bunch of poor white trash who are ignorant, who hate black people for an ignorant reason. It's the same reason the eugenicists did not go away. Now, many of these Klansmen are generational Klansmen. Their parents were Klansmen. The same thing with eugenics. Many of these eugenicists, such as David Rockefeller and Bill Gates, are generational eugenicists, and some of them are so prominent in society that they cannot afford to openly declare blacks as inferior. It goes back to Masonry and maintaining your good stance in society. Masons aren't the only ones who understand the importance. In fact, most of what's going on is to maintain people's images, their facades, and their smoking mirrors. So, when all is said and done, if you don't understand anything else, understand these two things. Well, three things. One, Masons have always historically on record, mainstream history, been criminals. Number two, it is racist to stigmatize conspiracy theorists. Not necessarily to disagree with them, but to stigmatize them. You're a fucking nut. You're kind of like one of those black people who think that racism exists. You're fucking delusional. There is no racism. There is no CIA. There is no conspiracy. That kind of bitch shit. And number three, white social norms are racist and deadly. They cause 100 million preventable deaths annually around the world.